Hello. Welcome to episode 102. I'm your host, Joy Ravella. I got this amazing email through from Andrea. She said, what an encouragement this podcast has been on my faith journey. I love that this podcast is not too long, so I can listen on my way to work each day and get a blessing. I love that. I love that your commute also times in with the length of these podcast episodes. You are in a lucky space, my friend. If you want to send through an email, the email address is below. But truly, so many people say to me that this is a companion on their commute. And by leaving a 5-star review, by going ahead and leaving a written, specifically 5-star review, it enables a lot of individuals looking for podcasts to listen to while they're driving to and from work or just out and about. So just by leaving that 5-star review, just by writing something up about it, you can enable someone else to find this podcast and have a really positive voice into their drive. Right now, though, let's get into today's Bible verse.
Proverbs chapter 27 verse 1, the NIV version. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring.
I have got the amazing Jen here in studio with me.
Hello.
Now, you are pretty hyped because just around the corner, you've got an incredible trip coming up. Tell me about this trip.
Well, it's not really around the corner. It's next year, but I'm just going to imagine it.
You've got to book these kinds of trips really early, though.
Yeah. So I'm going to a Disney cruise, the first Disney cruise that's going to be in Australia. So I cannot wait.
Oh my goodness! And you're taking your baby girl with you. Yes. How old will she be at that point?
She'll be 2.5.
So will she be running around at this point?
Yeah, she's running around now. So I can't imagine what she'll be like on this ship. I'm sure she'll run into all the characters. She'll be one of those kids who won't wait in line and just go, there's Mickey. Me.
Yeah. But she can get away with it because she'll be 2 and a bit. You can't do that at like 21.
I'll try to do that.
So today we are talking about Proverbs 27:1. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about Proverbs 27:1, which is all about not boasting about tomorrow, because you never know what a 24-hour period can hold for you.
Oh, yeah.
There's a great song by Matt Carney. He's a Christian singer-songwriter, and in one of his songs, he says, "We are all one phone call away from our knees."
Wow.
And I remember the first time I heard that song and it just kind of hit me. And I thought, man, that's so true. Like, we really are just one phone call away from kind of having a whole world turned upside down. And that's what we're going to unpack in today's episode. And especially if you are someone who's maybe just received some news in the last 24 hours, I hope that today's conversation gives you hope, but also helps you know that you're not alone in this. Worlds can change literally overnight.
Yep. And
we're going to get into your story a little bit later, Jen. But what is your first impression of this verse?
Yeah, well, I firstly thought of, wow, like, it's such a big warning. Like, it's telling me to not be overconfident. We tend to just focus on what could happen. I think living in this right moment, it's a great way to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in the present, in the moment. It's such an ism these days, like everyone's spouting it off, but it's so true. I mean, the Bible talks about it. You don't have enough capacity to worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got enough things for you to deal with alone.
Yeah, correct.
So true, Jen. What does this verse tell you about who God is or what matters to him?
For me, it means that God values that we walk humbly with him. That we don't brag about or worry about tomorrow, and we just focus on what the fun events are today. He wants us to brag about him and his loyal love. Anything and everything can change overnight, and it will change overnight.
Yeah, and I like that you brought in that word brag, because it's kind of in that verse, do not boast about tomorrow. It's like counting your chickens before they hatch. It's by saying, oh yeah, my son or my daughter, they're going to be like a lawyer or a doctor or like a CEO one day, and you don't know what'll happen.
Exactly.
Or saying to yourself, yep, I'm going to achieve this one day. And I think, and I have to say, I think there is a difference between being goal-oriented and wanting to succeed and, moving forward with vision and passion. I think there's something else to be said about boasting about it.
Yeah.
It's a different sort of mindset. I think one comes from a place of being inspired by God to live out the purpose he has for you. And I think one mindset comes from just believing in your own strengths and almost being a little conceited in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do with attitude and a lot to do with your behavior and the way that you react to it. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think that was something that really came to play with your story.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to this one. So tell me a little bit about how this story came alive in your world.
Yeah. So my overnight change story is childbirth.
Oh, that would kind of be life-changing.
Oh, it is. See, I had a planned C-section, so I knew 6 months in advance of the day that I was going to give birth, if everything went well, right?
Right, yeah.
So from that day on, I knew that there was another human being. I was going to be a mom, and everything's going to change. I'm not going to be working because I'm on mat leave. I'm not going to have my day-to-day. I'm going to have this child, this other human being in front of me. And so in my head, I was like, I'm going to be that Instagram worthy mom who's perfect at everything. I'm going to have the house clean. She's going to be wearing the best clothes. I'm going to have like an outfit of the day every day. Yeah, that didn't happen at all. So literally the next day when I gave birth, I lost a lot of blood during the C-section. I couldn't keep any food down, so I was quite ill. So for the first few hours of Chelsea's life, I was just knocked out.
Wow.
And so the nurses were helping me. I couldn't move after a C-section. Like they said, lie down, don't move. And I'm like, but how do I change her nappy? What do I do? I'm so grateful for Kev, because Kev was there able to look after Chelsea and learn how to change her nappy. Key point, learned.
Yeah.
And so that was my overnight. Like in my head, I was like, you know, I've got this. I'm going to go to hospital, come out looking like I was in a day spa with a gorgeous baby. But instead I was just lying in hospital, passed out.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we can kind of like laugh about it a little bit now, but I'm sure in the moment it would have been quite a realization, having this picture of what motherhood was supposed to look like for you, knowing exactly the day you were going to give birth. You probably had like a whole week-long plan of what you were going to do with Chelsea after she was born. So how, in that moment, like when you were like, okay, my tomorrow is not what I thought it would be, this is a bit different, how did you navigate that space?
I had to take a step back. I took a step back and I had to like look around at my bearings, and I had to remember that I had to remember this verse. I have to remember that God's got this. God's already planned all this for me, even though it wasn't what was in my mind. It wasn't what I wanted. This is what I thought I wanted, but God knew me better. He knew how my body was going to react. He knew I needed that rest. I really did need that rest, because from then on, I don't think I've had rest, even now. So I needed God, and I needed my support team around me.
Proverbs chapter 27 verse 1. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Hey, maybe you're listening to this podcast episode and you're saying, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That day, everything changed for me. Maybe for you, you haven't really had one of those days, or one that so readily comes to mind. But the reality is, one way or another, the life we live right here in this broken world means that we will encounter days where everything turns around. And the song I was mentioning earlier from Matt Carney, which by the way I have posted on the Everyday Joy Facebook group, so if you want to check out that song, make sure you click on the link below to the Facebook group there. But I wanted to point out something that he said in this song that I thought so links to today's verse. If every building falls and all the stars fade, we'll still be singing this song, the one they can't take away. And I think that's the thing I really want to cling on to. When everything changes, we need to reach for that which doesn't change. That song that doesn't change. That scripture that doesn't change. And most importantly, the God who doesn't change. The God who knew that you would be encountering this situation. The God who knew that one day you would be receiving that phone call, getting that report, going to that meeting. And I think it's really important that we choose to lean not into the unknown, but into the known. So if that's you today, I hope you get a chance to listen to that song and also really press into today's scripture, because what it does is it humbles us, yes, but it also reminds us to not trust in our own strengths and abilities and idea of the future, but to rely solely on God. Well, that wraps up today's episode on the Everyday Joy podcast. Hey, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's episode with Jen. We'll be wrapping up the week. And again, if you haven't had a chance already, go ahead, leave a written 5-star review or send through an email, because I'd love to hear which episode you're enjoying, where you're listening from, and a little bit about yourself. All the details are in the description below. Catch up again tomorrow.